Can you start by sharing with us what you do at EIT Food?
So maybe for those people who do not know EIT Food actually is established by the European Commission already, I guess, 14 years ago. And EIT Food is there specifically to boost innovation in the areas of agricultural and food technologies. So we are a networking platform. We're a facilitator, actually, a collaboration. It's membership-led. We have over 250 members, which are corporates, academia, and startups as well. And what we try to do is we foster innovation by helping or facilitating collaborations between all these parties. I work specifically in the investment team. So a lot of these ventures, they start very early stage. And I get involved when the ventures have come through the accelerator programs, which I'll mention later. And we actually are able to select the best ventures to invest in them. And so I'm actually an investor. I spent 17 years in venture capital, always on impactful, sustainable technologies. And I recently joined EIT Food actually to expand their investment activity in these young ventures.
Exciting. So one of the overlying topics of the 𝗵𝗁𝗁𝗵 event this year is understanding what the critical success factors are to scale bio-based innovation. From your perspective as an investor and an institutional investor, can you share some insights into what that could be?
Yes, well, of course. And it is not just the scale. I guess the question is, what do we look for in bio-based innovation? Of course, we want companies to have something truly differentiating. We see a lot of different solutions that are actually trying to solve the same, that are not that different from each other. And maybe they could be successful, but then it really makes a difference. And that's the second point, is market validation. So even at very early stages, we look for market players to actually sort of confirm, yes, this is what we need, and this is what we want to work with or try to help develop it. And so also, I think something that's very specific to bio-based innovations is think of your supply chain and your position in a value chain very early on. And that's a lot about, the availability of the resources, the distance to get there, and what's very important is the cost then of getting to that solution. Now, we as investors, of course, we also think what is really critical in the success is the founder, personal qualities. So do you have the stamina? Do you have, of course, the knowledge and the capabilities in the area, but do you have the stamina and the ability to convince other people that your solution's really good? And also, I guess, the ability to surround yourself with the right people, because nobody knows everything. So know yourself very well and take advice and surround you with the people who can complement you. And then finally, of course, as an investor in technologies, we look for scalability.
We are looking at different phases along the journey before you scale, right? Do you have a specific focus on the stages that you invest in? And if so, can you share a little bit about what you think the best tools, the financial instruments are per phase for startups?
I think it's a good way also to explain what we do at EIT Food. So we have different programs, and then when people start out, they have this idea and they're on their own. Basically, we have a program, it's called 𝗂𝗶𝘁𝗄𝗏, that we help people to find their business partners, to actually test the idea, to validate the product in the market, and try to start writing your business plan and prove the technology. It's in technology terms between tier L1 and 3. We work with other parties who will be delivering those programs and providing the kind of support. Then the next phase, once you have your team and you've reached like tier L3, you want to go and do your technology validation in a real life scale with a business partner, with a corporate. Of course, the strongest founders, they find some of their own partners, but this is also why EIT Food could help a lot, because we have a huge network. And so we have a program, it's called FAN, it's the Food Accelerator Network, and there you can apply, and actually apart from giving funding, and the ticket is somewhere between 20 to 40K, 50K, we also, make the connections with you, with potential potentially like a 𝗫𝗶𝘁𝗀𝗃 who has the facilities with academia, but also corporates who would be willing to really test your technology in their real environment. So we find that that's a very valuable program. And then when you come out of that, of course, that's still only 20 to 40, 50K. You need some funding. And what we find is that the most VCs, they invest Series A and beyond. So what you get this gap, people getting these small accelerator tickets, and then they're not quite ready to get the Series A venture funding. And that's where the investment team comes in. So that's what we do. We do like typically seed funding. So these companies that come through the accelerator, they're looking for funding, but they might not be ready yet to go to Series A and beyond. Like they need this pre-Series A or seed round, and that's when we get it.
So you bridge that gap that for a lot of venture capitalists is too risky still, right,
Yeah.
to invest in.
Exactly. So that's where I think we as EIT Food have a role to play in all those stages. Of course, we have a big network with VCs as well. So some of them take a little bit earlier dip and come along with us, but many of them will wait until we've done the valuation, and the next one, when the company raises a proper Series A, we can get our network involved and then guide them. And then, those VCs will have seen that we work with them, and then, we sort of hand over. We will still do some follow-on investment, but then as it goes to Series B and beyond, we will let them take on the stake completely.
I want to ask you about the investment climate in Europe at the moment, in particular food. I think it was something like 2018, 2019, where you had a lot going on, right? Especially in the novel food space. And then you had a bit of a dip, a bit of a crash. How is the investment climate at the moment, particularly with regards to food?
Yeah, it's actually interesting that you ask. I don't know if you saw that. Before this, in venture capital. I worked at the European Investment Fund for a while.
Oh, yeah.
And between 2015 and 2018-19. And in that time, actually, there were the first dedicated food funds that came to our table. I remember my colleagues saying, this is just another hype. It's way too niche to set up a whole investment thesis and a fund around it. I said, I don't think so. I think it's going to be big. So actually, against the stream, my team, we invested in the first food tech dedicated funds back in 2017. And so after that, yes, you're right, you saw all these people crowding into space, especially in the food side, by the way. And in 2021, we actually saw the peak. So between 2021 and 2022, there was a 70% drop worldwide, 50% in Europe in the amount of funding that went.
How come?
Food. Well, this was because there was this big bubble in COVID, accelerated actually. So the pandemic sort of made everybody wanted to invest in, food technology, and then afterwards people realized that there was a bubble, and a lot of companies that had big names, I won't mention them, but everybody will know there's very capital intense deals, and they didn't perform the adoption. For instance, if you have insect-based food, the consumers didn't follow fast enough. So this company was all ready to serve, and then people didn't want it.
The market wasn't ready.
The regulatory requirements that take much longer. So the combination of those factors have just made people realize. Also, a lot of generalists went into food, and then they just realized, maybe I need a little bit more specialist knowledge. So 2021 saw this huge crash. So where are we today? We are after the reset in a way. So the good part is the generalists have moved out mostly, and what you see, there are more specialized funds. So I think that's a positive. So you asked, what is the current climate? I do see now that in addition to food tech, it's still there, but there is a lot of interest going to agri-tech, and we need to be careful we don't get the same bubble where people think, we're going to do this, but they don't realize agri-tech, it's super important, but it's very long development time, so that you need to be able to facilitate this. The problem with traditional venture capital is they want to raise, a fund, deploy, and then exit in 10 years, +1+1, and agri-tech tends to require longer times.
Sure.
So Regen Ag. So the thing is, it's also very difficult at the moment to raise funds as a fund. So you do see it's difficult for ventures to raise funding because a lot of venture capitalists, they want to invest, but they don't have money. On the other hand, you see, like I said, there's many more players. They're becoming more specialized as well. So hopefully we'll make wiser decisions.
And why aren't there any funds available, let's say, also for the venture capitalists? Is it the general uncertainty that we're seeing in the world right now?
Yeah, that is, I mean, you can't completely separate it. You have to also find the right pitch, because in a world where people say, oh, climate change, it doesn't matter, it just doesn't exist, people are moving away from sustainability, so you have to give it a different pitch. There are, of course, people who stay in space, fortunately, and I guess we need to huddle together those people who really realize this is a longer-term trend. You can't deny that there are climate changes. If you see the floods, if you see the droughts, and then you still sort of deny that there is a change going on, maybe you're blind. But people who are faced with that reality, they just realize we have to continue working on it. And what you see is there are more people stepping in who understand the sector. There's also family offices, people who are wealth holders, who have a longer term vision, saying, okay, we have to step up. But yes, for fundraising, institutional capital goes with a little bit with the waves. If people are very fearful, if people don't know what economic situation will bring, there's also corporates in certain sectors like chemistry. I come from the chemical industry originally. They just have to face it, reality of survival for their own business. So there is no luxury to actually make investments and do something that's a little more exotic or longer term. They just have to start performing and making sure that next quarter they're still profitable.
You just mentioned climate change. I think one of the other big challenges that we're going to be collectively facing as a species is that we are going to be 10 billion people on the planet by 2050. Protein demand is expected to increase by 50% until then. And the big question is, how are we going to feed all of these people? I want to ask you specifically also about the lab-grown food trend in Europe. That is really something that is growing. But then you have the regulatory issues that don't allow the commercialization right here. And so a lot of startups go to the US, they go to Asia. How do you see this trend developing? Do you think there's a future for that in Europe?
To be honest, I think we're just a little more slow in Europe. So the fact that it is allowed in other areas, I guess we have to be realistic. If we want, Europe, maybe the shortage is just as urgent enough yet. But if as a globe we want to feed everybody and with the same amount of resources that we have in the world. I studied chemical engineering. There's this law of thermodynamics that says there is a certain amount of mass resources that you have and it's not going to get bigger. So we have to be more efficient. And if it means that there is something like lab-grown food, then I think it is important that we look at this topic as politics as well and say we guide it such that it's done in a proper way. We have a role to play, but it's impossible to say we don't do it. It's like saying, oh, I don't like computers because my kids are spending too much time on the screen and then they're not allowed to, look at screens or use screens anymore. You can't go back. And so you have to study it and you have to develop a regulatory framework that allows it in a good way. And maybe we're very slow, so there we'll have catching up to do. But to think that it is going to be out of this world and not happening at all, I think that would be an illusion, or I don't think that's realistic.
It is a question of food security, right, in the long term, so...
Absolutely. And that is true. Even Europe, there is a certain amount of land that we have, and Europe is pretty heavily populated. So we have to be very, very selective in how we use our resources. And if that means that lab-grown food is going to be an option to feed the people in a healthy way, then we will have to develop a framework that works.
What are you looking forward to in particular today?
Well, I really love the reason why I like investing, I did fund investments before and that's fun, but I really like working with founders and seeing the pitches and seeing new innovations.